In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how we can create a mock server with UI testing. First, let's check out the application that we have here. We have a simple activity which contains just some navigation, and we have only two screens. The first screen is login, which has username and password, and the second screen will be just a profile. And that's nothing much, it's just the screen that will output that we're logged in. When we check the login, our screen has just, like we said, some input fields, but we also have a view model, and the way we work with the view model is by having these events. So for example, every time we type something, we are putting it in an event and then passing it out to the view model, and then we're updating the view state. After that, we have an event as well for the on login click. So when we click the login button, this event is being triggered, and we have a use case that's having execute remote, and we're just sending some request. When the request returns, we're emitting an event to the view, and we're collecting it over here. So we know that if the user is logged in successfully, we're going to navigate it to the authentication profile. We also have a network module because we're using Hilt, and that's one of the main parts that are going to be involved in the testing as well. And here we just have initialized retrofit, and we have the OKHTTP client as well, because we are just adding some logging interceptor just to check out the logs with what's happening. And we have our API service, and the API service is just, whatever you have as a request. And currently, as we can see, in the network module, the base URL, it's actually going to be the URL for the API, and it's just some fake URL. So it will return, fake error message, or so it's not a real request. Let's just check it out how everything works. For example, if we check the log and we just type something here, and we can see that the request is being sent, but of course it's not a real request, so it's not successful. But that's perfectly fine for us, because we're going to use this as a just testing example at the moment. Now, one of the first things that we have to do is, because we're going to be using Hilt, like I said, and we're going to be making UI tests, we need to create a custom instrumentation runner, which we can find in our main directory, which is called memory leak test runner, and we just put the package name in front of it and then the name of the test runner. So this is just how Hilt says it should be done, so you can use it the same way in your project as well. And by the way, the full code is in the description, the full project, so you can get everything from there. After we do that, let's go to our Android test directory, and this is the directory that all the UI tests are going to be. So inside of it, I've created a directory which is mock server, and just to make things more clean, we're going to be keeping our mock server over here. First, we need to create a mock network module, because when we click login, we would like it to send the request to a fake localhost, because in the real application, even though currently our host is just some fake address, in a real application this should be working. So we would like every time that our tests are run to not be sending the request to the real host, and that's why we're creating a localhost. And as you can see, in the network module, as well as here, we have this base URL, and that's important because we are extending the network module and we're replacing everything in it, or in our case, we're replacing the base URL, which we are using in our retrofit. So when we're running the tests, the base URL from the network module, from the mocked network module, will be used. And this is localhost 8080. Something important to note, because we're using localhost, we need to go to our manifest and add inside of it use clear text traffic. And this is important because it will not work. Your application will just put out an error that it does not accept localhost as a correct URL address, so this changes it, and this is fixing the error. Next, let's check our other file, which is mock server dispatcher. Now, this file is where we're saying what needs to happen on every request, and you can change it however you like, but currently I've done it like that. So I'm just passing a map, and the map will contain just the key, as it will be the key by itself will be just the URL address or the specific path of that REST API. and the value will be just a string that will be the name of a file. As many requests as you want, you can have them here, and you can say what type of response code you want, the body, and so many more stuff, but that's what we're going to be doing right now. So in order to get the specific request like we have here, our JSON, this is our value again, the name of the file, and we have over here our method that will just be getting that file, and we're going to be containing every resource that is a fake network request JSON in a resources folder, and it's literally called resources. So we have this folder over here that we've created, and you should name it like that because this is a specific folder. And inside of it, we're just putting, every request that we want. And in our case, first is authentication login success, and that's the only one for now, but you can imagine we can have so many more. And what we're expecting it to return is success true. If you have, for example, success false, maybe this will be another file, and so on. You can imagine you can do a lot of stuff here. So knowing that, you can see that we're just returning response 200 and with our success message. Now let's go to our authentication screen test and check what's happening. First, we'll have the HILT Android test at the top. So this means that we want to use HILT in it. Then we have some initializations, and here we're just setting up the order of them. So every time we set a rule with a specific order, this means that this part of the code will be run before this one, and you get the idea. So we have our HILT object, and by the way, we're also injecting it over here in our setup, which you'll see in a bit. And we have also our compose, and this is our actually screen. So we're pointing to the screen that we're actually going to open, and this is the main activity. So because we have only one activity, we want to just put this one in here, and every time the test runs, the main activity will run. So this will be the UI that we're working with. Usually you can create UI tests not for whole screens, but for specific also just elements of your UI. But in our case, we want to simulate the full thing because we want to use this mocked web server that we've created, and that's the whole idea. Then we're initializing a couple of stuff. As we can see, our OKHTTP client, which we're injecting, and we can inject it because we're using HILT, and we have a variable for our mock web server. And the mock web server by itself, it's a library, and you can check everything in the Gradle file. Like I said, the full code is in the description, so you can get every library from there. And then we have our map, which is just a key and a value with the request path and with the file that we wanted to return. Then we have the OKHTTP idling resource, which is just we're setting it up if we need it for something that's running in the background, and the UI should know that, the UI is not over, it's not finished, we should wait for something. Next we can see we have two functions, which are stop service and setup. Now, so you can see above them, we have the before and after setup, so this means when they're going to be triggered. And of course, in the setup part, we want it to be triggered before anything, so that's why we have here the HILT injection, we have the idling resource creation, and the mocked server, just creating the mocked server as well. And in the after, we want, after everything finishes, just to shut down the server and unregister the idling registry. Let's check our actual test now. Because this is a success test, we're passing it an email and a password, and these are valid ones. And in our case, the valid password and email should be anything that has any value. So that's our only check. Then we're creating or setting the mock server dispatcher over here, and we're passing the service map that we have on the top. After that, we're going to be interacting with the UI, and to do that, I've used semantics and setting specific type of label. And what I mean by that is when we check here this on note with content description, and we see that I've set it as enter email, and we go to our login, we can see that our field with the email, it has a modifier semantics, which we've set content description to enter email. Now we do that to every UI object that we want to interact with from our test. So you can imagine we have this for the username, for the password, and for the login click. Also on our success screen, we have it for our text, which is logged in. When we go back to our test, we can see what's happening then. So we're accessing our component, we're checking that if it's on screen, and if it's on screen, we're just performing some type of event. And in our case, we would like to enter this, which is our text for the email. Then the next one is just the same, but for the password. And then we have the button. And again, we check if displayed. And if it's displayed, we are performing a click. So now comes the part that we need to check our request. And we're doing that by just getting our mock server request that's being executed. And then we're checking the same request if it's equal to the authentication login. So that's what request we're expecting. And just as we know that we've set up our authentication login to be returning true, because that's what we're passing in our map over here. And if it's true, it's going to be redirecting us to the next screen, which is going to be our logged in screen. And that's why we're checking if the logged in is on our screen, and that's it. And the test should be successful. That means that we have logged in successfully. Now let's run our test. As we saw, it was very fast, but we had the logged in message. And as we see in the console, we have the request sent to the localhost and not to the original URL. And then we're returning whatever is in the file, which is success. And that's why it's successfully executed. That was it for this tutorial. I hope you liked it. And if it was helpful, please leave a like and subscribe for more.